All right, so for our lesson today, the first text that we're going to look at is another one that's related to our Star Olympics theme, and that is going to be talking about the Battle of Marathons, the Greeks versus the Persians. So that's the title of the text that we're looking at today. And our goal for today always is to start by understanding what we're reading and then to be able to apply the skills that we need in order to answer the questions after we understand what we've read, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get into the text. There's an introduction right here. We're going to read and annotate the introduction. We don't want to skip anything because a lot of times there's a lot of good information in the introduction that we miss if we don't read it. So it says this article was written by Jason K. Foster and originally published in the January-February 2007 issue of Military History magazine. It describes the Battle of Marathon fought between the Athenians and the Persians. Athens was a city-state in Greece, so Athenians are Greeks. Persia was a region in the Middle East that became the seat of a mighty empire. Okay, so when I look at this, I want to think of who or what. Because this is a nonfiction text, I have to think about who or what this is about. And of course, I have to use my nonfiction symbols, okay? So this is about the Battle of Marathon. Well, what happened in the Battle of Marathon? The Athenians and the Persians fought. So this is what happened. It doesn't tell us why the Athenians and the Persians fought, so I don't have a question mark, and I'm not going to force them in there. Now I'm just going to go ahead and write my hashtag, and I'm going to put it up here. Hashtag, and I'm going to put BOM, Battle of Marathon, was when Athenians fought Persians. Moving right along to that first paragraph. Says paragraph 1, on the morning of September 17th, 490 BC, some 10,000 Greeks stood assembled on the plain of Marathon, preparing to fight to the last man. Behind them lay everything they held dear, their city, their homes, their families. In front of the outnumbered Greeks stood the assembled forces of the Persian Empire, who seemed to be an invincible army with revenge, pillage, and plunder on its mind. So when I'm reading this here, there are several things that I need to do. Like, clearly I need to figure out who or what this is mostly about and put a smiley face on it. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. So this is mostly about the Greeks. And I know that because I see Greeks here and then I see Greeks here again. So I see it's repeating. I know that it's mostly about them. Well, what happened with the Greeks? They gathered on Marathon ready to fight. Why were they fighting? Well, it says, in front of them stood the forces of the Persian Empire, who seemed to be an invincible army with revenge, pillage, and plunder on its mind. So I'm going to put a question mark there. The reason why they're fighting is because there's an army who's there to pillage and plunder their home. And so I'm going to put that all together in a hashtag. Greeks gathered at Marathon to defend their home. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is to make sure that I've completely understood this and make sure that my hashtag is accurate. The way that I'm going to do that is make sure I've understood everything that I've read. Now, when I was reading through here, there were several words that I saw that I didn't know the meaning of right off the bat and that I need to look up. So, invincible, pillage, and plunder. All of these are words that we need to know in order to understand what's happening in this last sentence, because there are 3 unfamiliar words in that last sentence. We need to stop and look them up. So at this point in time, you're going to pause the video. You're going to look up the definition of these 3 words, and you're going to make a note of it over here on the side of your paper. Go ahead and push pause. All right, now that we've looked up the definitions, I want you to go on ahead and check to make sure that this is an accurate hashtag. If it is, cool, move on. If not, go on ahead back and redo it, rework it so that it's an accurate hashtag. And again, you can pause here. All right, now that you had some time to look through that paragraph again and rethink that hashtag, we're going to move on to paragraph number 2. The second paragraph says, the Athenians' feelings were best expressed by Aeschylus, who fought in the Persian wars in his tragic play, The Persians. O sons of the Hellenes, fight for the freedom of your country. Fight for the freedom of your children and of your wives, for the gods of your fathers and for the sepulchres of your ancestors. All are now staked upon the strife. So I want to figure out, who is this mostly about? Well, this is mostly about Athenians' feelings. And it was tempting for me to say it's about Aeschylus, but it's not. This is the feelings that he's expressing. This is their feelings, though. This is what the sentiments are of the Athenians. So what are they? Well, is that they're fighting for freedom, for their families, for their gods, and for the sepulchres of their ancestors. So they're fighting for all of these people. I'm going to go ahead and write that hashtag here. Hashtag Athenians felt they were fighting for freedom gods and ancestors. So I had to kind of work my way around some of the words here because they're unfamiliar words. And that means that, yet again, I have to stop and look them up, because the only way I know that I'm understanding what I'm reading is if I understand the vocabulary and the words that are used to express the ideas in the paragraphs. So one word that I came across that was an unfamiliar word is sepulchres. And then another one is strife. So I want to know what those 2 words are so I can make sure that I'm accurately understanding what I've read in the second paragraph. So this is going to be another pause point for you all. You're going to pause here again, and you're going to look up those 2 words, write down the definitions, and then use them to check the hashtag to make sure that it's accurate. If it is, then we can move on. If not, then you're going to rework the hashtag based on your understanding of the paragraph now that you know the definitions of these 2 words. So go ahead and pause it here, look up the definition of these 2 words, and rework the hashtag if needed. All right, moving on to paragraph 3. At this point, we should be kind of seeing the pattern of how we're breaking the text down and making sure that we are understanding what we're reading. So the same process that we went through with the first 2 paragraphs is the same thing that we're going to do here. So paragraph 3 says the 2 sides faced each other directly, waiting for the fight to start. The Athenians stalled for days, anticipating reinforcements promised by Sparta, but they knew they could not wait for long. The Persians expected an easy victory as they had won against enemies so many times before, and they were in no hurry. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look and I'm going to see what is the most important idea here, or the most important subject. So when I come back to this first sentence, it says the two sides. And then later in the paragraph, it talks about the two sides, the Athenians and the Persians. And so I know that the two different sides, being the Athenians and the Persians, are the most important subject here. And I'm going to go on ahead and look at what happened. So the Athenians are stalling, and the Persians are expecting an easy victory. So I'm going to put an exclamation point in both of those sentences. Then I'm going to go ahead and think about why. Well, why are the Athenians stalling? Well, because they're anticipating reinforcements from Sparta. And why are the Persians expecting an easy victory? Because they had won against their enemies many times before. So I'm going to go ahead and create a hashtag. And I'm going to say two sides. And then I'm going to say Athenians wanted to wait for reinforcements, and Persians believed they would win. Okay, so they believed they would win. So these are the ideas of the two sides, what they're thinking going into the battle. So I didn't see any words here that would be super unfamiliar. But if you see any words here that are unfamiliar, you're going to stop at this point in time. You're going to push pause. You're going to put a box around the word, and then you're going to look it up to make sure that you understood what we've just done here and what we've just read. Okay? So go ahead and pause, breathe, and scan back through that paragraph and make sure that you understand what it is saying. All right, moving on to paragraph 4. It says, the Greeks, knowing the time for the battle had come, began to move forward. Apparently, they advanced with focus and purpose, but beneath this firm veneer, as they looked on a vastly larger enemy, many must have been fearful, of what was to come. The Persian archers sat with their bows drawn, ready to loose a barrage of arrows that would send fear and confusion through the Greek ranks. Okay, so when I look at this, I see Greeks here, I see Greek here. So I'm gonna go on ahead and put a smiley face here because the subject is the Greeks. What happened? Well, they started to move forward. Why? Well, they were focused and they had purpose. So we're going to say Greeks moved forward to attack Persians with purpose and focus. Oops, okay, so that doesn't look like focus. I'm going to rewrite it. Purpose and focus. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing some lines in because these are starting to kind of blur together. And I want to make sure that we can tell which ones go with which paragraph, okay? So the next thing that I need to do is go back and I need to figure out, are there any unfamiliar words that could have made me misunderstand what I was reading? And so again, you're going to pause. You're going to go back and you're going to think, are there any words in this paragraph that could have caused me to misunderstand what I read? If so, you know what you're going to do. Put a box around it, look it up, rework the hashtag based on your new understanding. Super important. Go ahead and do that if you need to. All right, moving on to the last paragraph, number 5. It says, had the Persian archers been allowed to loose their bows, the battle might have ended before it had truly begun. Fighting their doubts and fears, the Athenians seized the initiative and rushed the Persians. Confronted by such a bold move and realizing their infantry would be pressed into action sooner than expected, must have shaken the Persian confidence. So this is about the Athenians. What do? They rushed the Persians. Okay. And it says that it was a bold move and it pressed the Persian military into action sooner than expected. So I'm going to put a question mark there because that's why they did it. So I'm going to say Athenians surprised Persians by rushing them and forcing them to fight. Okay? So, again, with this very last paragraph, you're going to go back and you're going to figure out, is there anything in the paragraph that you don't understand the definition of? If there is, look it up, rework the hashtag, and then move on to the questions, making sure that you are using these steps to annotate the questions so that you can also understand the questions and get those correct as well.